Hello guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the series. Now, I mentioned in part 1 that this second part will be covering the main use cases for SP, so initially, before I can get to that, I'm going to be giving a quick guide on what your setup will need to look like for you to start adding tracks to SP. Firstly, in the description I have placed a link to the MKW SP website, which you will need to download the files from. This should be version 1.0.12, and if it's not, then something has gone wrong, but as long as you have that version, that will be the correct file. Once you have downloaded the zip file, the next thing that you're going to want to do is extract the contents of the zip file to the root of your SD card, and then load up your Wii and boot Mario Kart Wii SP through the homebrew channel just once. Once that has loaded up, feel free to close the Wii down and put the SD card back into the computer. Once the SD card is back inside of your computer, if you go to the root, you should now see a folder that's called MKW-SP, and if you go inside of that, you'll be able to find your My Stuff folder where you will be dragging and dropping your replacement track files. To get the files to replace your tracks with, the first thing you will want to do is head to the custom Mario Kart Wii Wiki, and once you have decided the track that you wish to replace one of the regular tracks with, you will see a search bar on the top right there. There you can go and find the correct track file to drag and drop into your My Stuff folder to replace the original track. A good way to know what the correct version of the track that you want to add if you are practicing for CTGP is to go to the Chadsoft website, and you will see that they have the version listed next to the track name on the leaderboards over there. The last point to bring up before we move on to the actual tips and showcase of SP itself is that the file name of the track that you have added to your My Stuff folder will need to be changed to be the file name of the track in the base game in order to replace it once you are in. There is a forum post with the names of all the track files on that I've left in the description, for which you can use easily to find the name and replace the name of the file in your My Stuff folder. And now with all the prep out the way, that's the end of the introduction, and we can get into the actually interesting stuff. So now that SP is loaded up and we've got the track working, you'll see I've used Delfino Island here as an example. I'm just going to go ahead and show kind of a demonstration of what you've always been doing to practice bagging on custom tracks here. So if I just go and make the strat straight away, you'll immediately see what the issue is here upon me respawning, and that very simply is that doing this repeatedly is a massive pain in the backside. So luckily, SP gives us a way to speed this up. Now, as you can see upon reloading into the track here, before I try to go for any attempt at the strat, I'm going to quickly make a save state. So upon pressing pause here, you can see if you select the save state option and then go back into your game, let's say you give this strat a crack and you failed and you wanted to try again, it will be as simple as you'll see in the following. All you have to do once you create the save state is press the bumper on the back of your controller behind the button you use to drift, and it will just repeatedly reload you, whether you make it or fail it, just in the same spot over and over and over again. So you can use this to infinitely practice any strat that you like without having to keep taking time to reload your position, drive back to where you were, so on and so forth. You also get to keep whatever item you had in your item roulette, so if it's an item reliant strat, that would be of a lot of use to you. So the next thing I want to show you is the KCL viewer option, which, as you can probably tell from the very different looking track here I've got turned on. So in settings, if we go here, you'll see at the same spot as a lot of the other things we'll be doing later, there's an option for visual course KCL, and you can have this as off, overlay, or replace KCL model, but as you can see from there, you don't want to replace it as it looks glitchy and ugly and horrible and whatnot, so you want to keep that on replace course model. Now what this allows you to do, which is most useful, and why I'm sort of using Delfino Island to demonstrate here, is you can see all the out of bounds and collision on the track. So that big wall I've just looked at there on the side is out of bounds, for example. And then if we come over to this side, you'll see how the gap over there is a lot bigger than you would maybe think it would be, which is what allows this strat to be possible. So to demonstrate, if I drive back and we take this as if it was a regular race, I'm driving here, and because I don't hit that wall on the outside, I'm able to make the strat very easily. And just having the visualization of that, being able to see it, just maybe if you've got photographic memory, for example, will make these sorts of strats a lot easier for most people. So now the next thing I want to cover are the checkpoint visualizers. So again, if we go to settings and the debug overlay section and enable checkpoints this time instead, you'll be able to see that suddenly all these strange coloured boxes have appeared all over the track. And now what those represent are the key checkpoints for the track, which can be very useful for some strats. So as we see here, if I go for this little respawn skip thing and fail, I don't clear the checkpoint. So I'm just given the standard respawn, and now if I'd landed anywhere within this blue box, I'd have been given the same respawn down here at the bottom of the hill. However, if I go back and I go for the strat again, and this time I'm better, so I make it, and as you can see I just barely clear that blue box, I'm then given the further back respawn. So the checkpoints can be used as a good visualizer to understand why you may or may not be making certain strats. Now, the second thing I wanted to cover with checkpoints, which I'll demonstrate here on SDI, are there are some strats with checkpoints that you need to hit to make them. So, for example, with this very scuffed demonstration of how to do the quick SDI strat here, you'll see I make it, but what was I aiming for? How did I respawn up here? It's very, very easy to miss if you don't know what you're doing with that. So if I then go into the settings again and enable the checkpoints, now that we've got the visual for what I'm aiming for, you'll be able to see that if I head towards the strat, suddenly this sort of green looking box has appeared. And now because that's the key checkpoint that I need to hit, I now have a visual for what I'm aiming for. So whenever I go for this strat, I know that I need to hit that checkpoint before respawning underneath the sand pillars above, just there, that you saw my funky Amos head towards. So if I go through all this, then hit that last checkpoint before I respawn, as long as my sort of mini checkpoint, I think, is set to the region underneath this sand bit, I will respawn up here. And so for the last thing I want to discuss for this video, I just want to go over some applications of the item wheel. So you'll see in the top left corner there, I start my race with triple shrooms by default. However, if you press the left trigger behind the item button on your CCP or alternative control when using this, you'll see I can scroll through a list of various different items that I can use within time trials. Now, of course, the main one that you'll be seeing most of the time is the shroom option that essentially just gives you infinite shrooms. So, for example, with this strat here that is shroom reliant, you'll see I'm able to just spam shrooms, keep practicing it with a save state, for example, infinitely until I can get this down. Now, the second useful option, this is kind of more so for running, but maybe has some applications with bagging, is the golden version, where instead of giving you infinite shrooms, it just gives you shrooms that last as long as a golden would. So please ignore me failing horribly there. You're on a timer instead. And lastly, the star. So some strats, some respawns are possible with a star, so this can be useful, as you can see, for practicing those if you want to practice things that require a star instead of a shroom, such as, I don't know, the Lakeside Park bonk, for example. You just want to get some good reps in on that. Of course, we've got all the other items here, so you can see all of the throwables, generally green shells, fibs, bombs, what have you. And also the bill, if you want to practice some niche bill strats that will be coming up later in the series. However, I will warn that within the time trial mode, these items will not hit you, so practicing some of the strange little fib strats isn't possible within time trials. So as an end note, I'd like to thank you for making it to the end of the video. Part 3 will likely be a lot more theory based, so look out for that one in the future, but please don't expect these to be sort of rapid uploads. These do take time to make, so I can't promise that the gap from the next episode from this one will be as quick as this from part 1. And with that, thank you for watching. Nothing else to say, really.